Hello, I'm Rick Sons, and over the next few months, Pastor Andy and I will be covering the book of Romans. Uh, the Roman Empire was the political entity that God used to prepare the world for the birth of Jesus and for the spread of his gospel. Roman history has been very influential in the modern world and in many of the things that we see today. Roman history supported tradition from the Roman rule of law to influencing the creation of the Catholic Church. One priority of the Roman Empire, if not the main priority, was peace, which it accomplished with an iron hand. It enforced the idea of peace. The Pax Romana, also the Peace of Rome, guaranteed that people could live and travel within the Roman Empire in safety. Each week, I will help you dive into the history of this incredible book as we more closely understand these letters of Paul. Historical tidbits, like the fact that Paul never had been to Rome. He wrote these letters to people he had never met. He clearly expressed his desire to travel there, but had never been to Rome. The Apostle Paul wrote these letters about 56 to 57 AD. Paul wrote the letters to the believers in Rome, which is why the book is called Romans. Paul wrote these letters to give foundation to the reader so that they could construct their faith and to live for and to serve God more effectively. As we study the book of Romans, it reveals answers to important questions and supplies information on many topics. Topics such as salvation, the sovereignty of God, judgment, spiritual growth, and the righteousness of God. Paul is passionate with his words, so the reader may realize that salvation cannot be obtained through man's good deeds, but only through the faith in God's righteousness. Also, we cannot repair our relationship with God through our good deeds. This is only accomplished through faith in the perfect and finished work of Jesus Christ. This week, Andy spoke on Romans chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. This is Paul's greeting to the Roman believers, to the Christian believers in Rome. This letter was written about 30 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. Now, the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus was etched in the minds and the memory of Christians all over the Roman Empire. Paul gives a long salutation or greeting to the believers, making it clear that he was a faithful follower, a client of Jesus Christ. Salutatio is a Latin word from which the word salutation comes from. The salutatio took place every morning in the Roman Republic. It was considered to be one of the central aspects of the start of a day. The morning ritual was reiterated daily throughout the Republic and the Empire, and it was a fundamental part of Roman interaction between citizens of varying statuses in the Roman social culture. A salutation is a common greeting utilized throughout the world. It is commonly used to express acknowledgement of one's arrival or departure. Salutations are utilized in numerous cultures throughout the world. The salutation or greeting goes far beyond the simple handshake. Examples would be in Tibet, they stick out their tongue. Now, sticking out the tongue all began with monks who would stick their tongues out to show that they came in peace and weren't the reincarnation of the cruel 19th century king Langdharma. Now, Langdharma was known for having a black tongue. In the United Arab Emirates, they bump noses. This is used to demonstrate that you view a you view a potential business contact as a peer, as an equal. In France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Latin America, Ukraine, and Canada, they greet each other with an air kiss on the cheek. We have seen that in movies and everything. They walk up and they put one cheek and then the other cheek, kind of just back and forth. In New Zealand, they rub noses and sometimes foreheads. This pressing together of the nose and forehead is what New Zealanders call the sharing of a breath. In Botswana, China, Germany, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, they shake hands. Now, this shaking hand is not like what we do. They only use the right hand because the left hand is considered unclean. In Zimbabwe and Mozambique, they clap hands. Kind of an applause hello when they meet. In Zimbabwe, the clapping of hand comes after folks shake in a call and answer style. Basically, the first person claps, and then the second person claps twice in response. A little different. In Malaysia, you would put your hand on your heart, a very formal greeting. They take the opposite person's right hand lightly in yours, and then when it's done, they bring their hand to their chest and nod, and to symbolize goodwill and an open heart. In Cambodia, India, Nepal, Thailand, and in Japan, they bow. This is done by basically pressing the hands together in a pointing upward in a prayer position at heart level or a little higher, and then bending your head slightly forward and taking a bow. Uniquely, in Greenland, they sniff faces. Now, there's nothing quite like the smell of someone you love or someone you just met. In Asia and Africa, they revere their elders. This means greeting seniors and older folks before you greet younger people, and always using culture-specific titles and terms of respect when you meet the elder. I actually saw this practice on our mission trip to Kenya. Roger, the gentleman that was with us, one of our deacons, is older than the rest of us. And when we would go someplace, he would be greeted first. We actually, when we would eat a meal, we would wait for Roger, because as the elder, he would eat before we did. Very, very interesting, very, very rewarding thing to watch. In ancient Rome, the salutatio was the formal morning greeting of the Roman patron by his clients. The Roman social culture, Romans could be either patrons or clients. A number of clients, and sometimes the status of the clients, conferred the patronage or the prestige of the patron. A client owed his vote and his full support to the patron. Maybe this person had loaned him money and he needed to pay it back, so he gave him his full support. The patron would then protect the client and his family and gave legal advice and helped the client financially or in other ways. Patronage in Roman society was hierarchical, but obligations were always mutual on both sides. Typically, the client was of inferior social class. A patron and client might even hold the same rank, but the patron would possess greater wealth, power, or prestige that enabled him to help or do favors for his clients. There is possibility that you could be a patron to a certain group of clients, but be a client to someone higher than you. It's just the way the hierarchy would work. From the emperor at the top to the commoner at the bottom, the bonds between these groups found formal expression. They also had legal definition of patron's responsibility to the client. Patronage relationships were not exclusively between people. They also existed between the general of an army and his soldiers, a founder of a colony and the colonists, a conqueror and the dependent foreign community which he conquered. Benefits a patron may grant included legal representation in court, loans of money, influencing business deals or marriages, supporting a client's candidacy for political office or even the priesthood, arranging marriages. Clients were often able to secure new clients and extended their influence in political areas. In return for their service, the client was expected to offer their full service to their patron as needed. A client's service to the patron included accompanying them when they went to Rome or when they went to war. We have seen this in other cultures. In English culture, when the knight would go off to war, he would have his page or his client, for a better word, follow him. Maybe his armor bearer or whatever. In the event that the patron was captured, he would ransom for his capture. He would support him during any political campaign. Now, with this idea in mind, as we read verses 1 through 7, and we listen to what Paul is saying, he is considering himself a slave or a bondservant to Jesus, a client to Jesus. Paul did not think of himself as possessing any independence. There was no sense of self-ownership. He was owned strictly by the Lord Jesus Christ and therefore had no rights to anything that the Lord himself did not grant him. He was even willing to yield all of these rights if in doing so it would help him better serve his master. Now, wow, that is a remarkable concept. To give full support to your master. Now, this week, I want you to think on this question. Do you think of yourselves as property of Jesus? Serving Jesus because he owns you, or is your service to Jesus something that is yours even to give him? What is your position? Paul said, I am the property of the Lord Jesus Christ, and I live accordingly. Which is what we need to be doing each day. So until next week, let's all practice and do this. I will see you next week when we will dive in a little bit deeper into some Roman history as far as the scriptures that Andy brings in. So see you next week as we continue this historical journey through Romans.